All right, welcome to our first, I guess you could say, summertime edition of Weather and Climate Chat. It's still far from, we're not that far from meteorological summer, I guess, about 21 days and about, 40 days till astronomical summer. But it's summer here at Kutztown University. Students have graduated, so congratulations to all the graduates, right, Dr. Davis?
Yes, congratulations.
Yes, did you lose a lot of good students this past Saturday?
I lost a few. In geography, I think we had about a dozen or so graduates.
Okay.
One of them was my student researcher who went with me to AAG. Shout out
Okay.
to Chris Madden.
All right. Well, I lost a big group here at Kutztown University Radio, KUR. I lost about 10 students, which was one of my biggest groups ever in one time. So, but with that comes new students coming in. So, it's just the cycle of college life, I guess, right?
Yeah, a whole bunch of cycle of rebirth and
Yes.
whatnot.
And you probably know where I'm going with this cheesy segue. Radio guys are very cheesy with their segues. Cycle of life. Finally, we've got a cycle of new air. That was one dreary, ugly pattern last week.
It goes along with my daily brief comment today.
Yeah.
Where, finally we break the cycle.
Finally. And yesterday was nice, too, albeit a little bit windy in the afternoon. But it was finally some nice weather. I mean, that was really a ugly, dreary, disgusting, whatever adjective you want to use, pattern. And really what was occurring last week was similar to what occurred a couple weeks prior. However, we were on the good side of it a couple weeks prior. Last week, we were on the bad side of it.
Yeah, when we had, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago,
right,
when we had the high pressure pretty much sitting in place for a week, and we had this dry weather that was from the Omega Block, and you had the high pressure sitting pretty much over the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
And that high pressure system in Omega Block broke down over time, like it usually does.
Right.
And then just this past week, we had another Omega Block form.
But this time we
but
were on
this
the bad
time,
side of it.
the high pressure was sitting over the Great Plains, and we had a low pressure pretty much sitting over the Mid-Atlantic, giving us this dreary, rainy conditions for the entire week that pretty much perpetuated. And you had rain, cool weather for all finals week, making it for a pretty lousy finals week for some students.
I did get a kick out of it because, and I joked with my wife about this, other than on Friday, which was just wall-to-wall rain and ugliness, all of the other days had at least like one, I don't know if it happened here in Kutztown, but it happened up in Auburn where I live, 1 or 2 rays of sunshine that just showed up in the afternoon for like 1 minute. And I said to my wife, oh, here's our token ray of sunshine for the day. Enjoy it because you're not going to see it again for another day.
Yeah, there were a few breaks in the clouds, but they were very few and far between.
Right.
And whatever sun was out there was only out there momentarily, and then it
very
was gone.
momentarily. Yeah. So, well, at least that pattern is gone. Should have to, don't get too excited, though. We're not ready to get off to another 9 days of sunshine, though, because it's still going to be a generally active/unsettled stretch this coming week, although albeit not as ugly as last week. Not too far from here right now as we're recording this Monday morning at 11 o'clock. It's not too nice in Baltimore, Washington. Some rain showers down there and lots of clouds, and some of that's going to spin its way back up here tomorrow, it looks like. Explain what's happening in the atmosphere.
We have a low pressure system that's pretty much going around the Mid-Atlantic right now and giving a little bit of rain down toward, more toward Maryland, Virginia.
Right.
So we're getting the rain down there. And slowly it's going to be inching its way up here and possibly give us some shower activity tomorrow, although the chance looks pretty minimal at this point. We have a lot of dry air pretty much coming in from the north and the west today.
It looks like it's going to be one of those situations similar to wintertime when the precipitation kind of hits a wall as it moves north. I see a better chance for the rain showers the further south you are tomorrow.
Yeah. I personally think that we're going to avoid most of the rain.
Oh, okay.
We'll probably get maybe a shower or two.
Okay.
But nothing that's going to pretty much put a damper on your day like all last week, which is just rain upon rain upon rain.
Right. I heard on WEEU in Reading, they subscribe to AccuWeather, and they had a very specific forecast for tomorrow. I never heard them quite say this before. They're like, partly cloudy north of Reading, cloudy with a chance of showers south of Reading. So they're really cutting that wall like pretty much through Reading, which is not that far from here.
Evidently, they think the boundary's going to form pretty much around the Reading area.
Right. So, we'll see where that goes. And then it looks like the high pressure reexerts itself a little bit Wednesday and Thursday, and not too bad, although still a chance of a shower each of those days.
Yeah. Although I think the higher pressure is going to win out. I'm just going to be optimistic.
You're just being optimistic this week.
All this rain that we had.
All right, I'm being pessimistic because after last week, I'm just like, okay.
Temperatures are going to be pretty good, though.
Yeah, tomorrow looks a little cooler, though. I noticed that. I don't know what they're basing that off of, possibly an easterly flow tomorrow. But I know the Weather Channel is much more pessimistic with temperatures tomorrow. I mean, we have... what do they have for tomorrow? Weather Channel has...
Weather Service is saying winds out in the west.
For tomorrow?
Well, becoming west. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Northeast wind to start.
Weather Channel has 69 today, only 60 tomorrow, and then back up to 73 on Wednesday. And there was something I saw in the Weather Service's discussion this morning that possibly that's what had me a little bit concerned about tomorrow. What did they say? Hold on, where was it? It was something that they said...
Look at long term.
Yeah.
A bit of a turn toward the more dreary
Here we go.
cycle.
Tuesday has taken a bit of a turn toward the more dreary cycle. A warm front will be extending eastward from low pressure in the plains and will be over the area. Precipitation chances will increase during the afternoon with increased cloud cover and an east to northeast flow. Temperatures are now cooler than previous forecast. So that's what I was reading.
Yeah, well, not as bad as a few days last week.
But not as bad as a few days last week. I saw how they put that in there. So we'll see. I guess it'll just depend. I mean, we're kind of that's the Mount Holly discussion, and we're kind of on the northern fringe of the Mount Holly discussion. If you look at State College's discussion for tomorrow, it's a little more optimistic because, again, they're further north. So,
And then Wednesday and Thursday, temperatures are going to rebound and get back up in the 70s.
So even if tomorrow isn't as nice as today, it'll still not be as bad as last Friday. We'll just put it at that.
Yes.
Or any day last week, for that matter.
I think this week is going to be much better than last week.
And then I was looking at the long term. Next week, it looks like we might get into a fairly dry pattern for a little while. I don't see a whole lot of action happening next week. But
well, that'll be good if we start to see more of a drier period. I mean, it would certainly be welcomed, although we did need the rain.
We did. Oh, yeah. We shouldn't bash the rain. I mean, that was well needed. We didn't have to worry about wildfires for a week or brush fires or anything like that, which we had to worry about last month.
So. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later.
Well, let's segue in here. Regensburger with another one of his segues. Our topic of the week, Canada. A lot of serious stuff going on up there. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of wildfires going around the Fort McMurray area of Alberta. So it's western Canada, just above Montana and Idaho. That's where you're going to find your province of Alberta. Mainly from meteorological fame from Alberta Clippers, where low pressures pretty much form in that region, then trek across the North American continent.
Yep.
But in this case, you have a large amount of wildfires that seem to be correlated to the amount of snow you're receiving in the wintertime versus the thawing period. So in the Northern Hemisphere this winter, we received generally not a lot of snow. It was pretty low amounts of snow throughout most of the Northern Hemisphere. And the amount of snow melted somewhat early. So that period pretty much allowed the ground to dry out and allow for this risk of wildfire to occur. And that's what we're seeing in Alberta. Plus, there's a lot of organic material just under the soil, so there's a lot to burn. Not to mention it's also in a very controversial-ish part of Canada with the Alberta tar sands and the Keystone XL pipeline coming from that region, at least proposed Keystone XL pipeline.
Right. Yeah.
So these fires are just spreading like mad over there right now, and you have hundreds of foot tall flames.
Yeah,
and
pictures have been
towns
incredible.
Have been pretty much evacuated.
Yep.
A lot of philanthropy is coming out of this as well. With I'm a hockey fan myself, and the two Canadian teams that are out in Alberta, the Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames, have already donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to help fight the fires.
Has this kind of thing ever happened before in Alberta? I can't remember it, at least in my recent
Not
lifetime.
to this extent.
Yeah.
There have been wildfires out west, but they've been pretty much tied in with amount of moisture available.
I don't remember ever hearing about this.
Nothing to this extent, where you have wildfires just everywhere.
Yeah.
It seems in that region. And you have that smoke actually being brought down by the jet stream. Back home in Ohio, they actually had smoke coming in from Alberta from all those fires.
Really?
They had this haze over the Ohio skies. I think it was Thursday or Friday.
Interesting.
I'll send you the picture, and you post it on your Facebook page.
I will. That's not that terribly far from us if you think about it. Ohio is a half a day's drive pretty much, and Alberta's, thousands of miles away, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When particulate matter gets put in the atmosphere
Yeah.
and gets pretty much the jet stream to get a hold of that, it can be transported globally. It can go wherever it wants pretty much at that point.
Could we see some smoke here eventually?
Because
Because I know we've had some smoky days in the past,
It wouldn't surprise me if they actually came down this way. But I think right now with the jet stream kind of going further to our north.
Okay, we might be spared that.
I think we're not going to see it anytime soon. But if the jet stream starts to dip a little further south,
Right.
then we might see some of that smoke.
So now we got to follow the cause and effect correlation going down here. Obviously, this is happening from it being less snowy over the winter, less snowy. Why was it less snowy? Or is that related directly to climate change? Or is that related to the El Nino winter? What are we talking about here?
It probably is related to climate change, but
Okay.
again, you can't really denote any sort of one particular
Based on
event
one event, yeah.
this. But the amount of snow in Alberta was the lowest it's been in 50 years.
That would be pretty
So
significant. Yeah.
that seems to indicate that something extreme was happening
Right.
over the province. And you could probably come up with ties to climate change as a result. Now, when we discuss climate change, one of the things that pretty much is stated repeatedly in these climate assessments that's put out by the United States and peer-reviewed articles and so forth, is that you should be having these mega fires, as they're called, out west, where you have drier conditions, chances of wildfires being higher. You also have these fire events becoming more extreme, more vicious, perhaps, because you have a lot more dry tinder and fuel to essentially burn out there.
Right.
So overall, I would probably say they are linked to climate change.
Okay.
But again, I don't know if we can definitively say yet that this one event was a result.
Right. But if we start seeing this happening year after year or more frequently over the next decade or so, then definitely we start having a link.
Yeah, and I think with time we're going to see that.
Right.
Now, many of my colleagues already say that we have reached that point, that we're having this sort of climate change occurring. This is just one of the many things that's happening. And if I may segue to another aspect.
Sure, go for it.
With Governor Jerry Brown in California, he recently wrote to Governor Rick Scott in Florida saying you need to make an action on climate change, because you cannot deny people in your administration, in your state, of saying the words climate change, which they pretty much have a gag order on.
Yeah, I know.
Even though Florida is going to be the first ones to really see major catastrophic events from sea level rise.
Yeah.
In fact, Miami, if it rains, it gets stinky from all the sewage water being backed up, and some parts of southern Florida are already going underwater.
Wow.
So if you're saying that climate change isn't occurring, you're going to stand to lose billions of dollars in real estate, tourism, and economic potential just over this idea that climate change is not occurring.
Wow. That's some pretty serious stuff. So this is something that we've all got to stay aware of. And, wow. You don't even hear much about the Florida issue. I mean, that's a very good argument right there. You don't even really hear people talk much about what's happening in Florida, but that'll be one of the first states to be affected.
Yes, because Florida is the lowest elevation of any state, and the flattest too, I think.
Yeah.
It's much more flat than, say, Iowa or Nebraska or anything like that.
And we saw what happened in New Orleans with them, where they were so low.
And the Everglades, very famous national park, is just a few feet above sea level.
That's scary.
And when you start getting saltwater intrusion into that area, then you're going to essentially damage the ecosystem of this very fragile part of southern Florida.
And if we're looking at not to be, to cause fear, but if you're looking at a potentially more active hurricane season coming up this year, I mean, this could spell potential problems.
Yes, and I think Florida needs to make their stance very clear that there is something going on with climate change.
Wow. Well, we've got some very concerning topics there, Alberta, Florida, and I guess we've just got to continue to encourage our legislators to put this at the forefront of their their sheets of their to-do lists, I guess you could say, because without a climate, without a place to live on or breathe, there's nothing. So
there was a recent Tom Tolles political cartoon that had, well, maybe not so recent now.
Yeah.
Was with the fiscal cliff a few years ago, and how we went over the fiscal cliff.
Yep.
It had it as a very small cliff, and then whew, thank goodness we avoided that problem. Right. But then later on, they show this deep chasm that says climate in it. Because if you don't have a planet, you don't have an economy,
you're not going to worry about
you don't have people,
you're not
going to
worry about the
anything.
Economy. Yep. Very
you
good
lose
point.
your planet, you're in trouble.
That's right. We keep worrying about the economy, which is valid. I mean, but without the climate, there ain't no economy. So.
Indeed.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Sorry to be kind of or pessimistic note there, but at least the optimistic side of this 15 minutes has been a little bit of a sunnier pattern for us this week, and and we'll keep our ear to the rail with the other climate events going on.
Yeah, I think the weather this week will be much better than last week.
I think just the fact that we have sunshine today already has made better than last week, because last week there was nothing. So we've already surpassed that. Even if we were wrong for the rest of the week, we already have a better.
We got our
weekly
quota.
We already got our weekly quota. All right, Dr. Davis, we'll see you back here probably next week on Weather and Climate Chat. See you then.
Bye.